If working the steps was easy, everyone would do it. If getting a sponsor was easy, everyone would do it. If being honest was easy, everyone would do it. If not quitting was easy, then everybody would stay in the game. And I told you this last week that what you're embarking on is possibly going to be one of the most difficult things you've ever done, but it will pay the biggest dividends. The promises after the 9th step are true. As I was studying for this message, God shifted it, and I don't know quite how this is going to look, so I'm asking you to pray for me. But before I ask you to pray for me, I'm going to pray myself. Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I thank you for taking my friend home so he could be at peace. But for those of us who still got a shot at this, I pray that we find the peace that money can't buy, or a girl can't buy, or a car can't buy, or a job can't buy, or a house. The peace that transcends all understanding. No matter what's happening in our lives, we can be at peace. And Lord, I pray upon that peace that it may be displayed tonight. That there are many examples in our eyesight that we can see in our sight lines that this does work if you work it. So I ask for forgiveness if there's anything in me that's not of you. And I'm sure there is. So I receive the forgiveness. And I stand here purified to teach your champions, your future world changers, for those who make it. For those who will die, Lord, we lift them up too. For those who are high right now, we love them. For those who are planning a relapse, stop it, Lord. Allow them to come to the end of themselves so they can understand why they were really created. In your name we pray, amen. So we're talking about purpose, and we talked about what purpose isn't. God's purpose for my life is not to smoke crack. God's purpose for my life is not to be depressed and anxious and angry and unforgiving and all those different things. So just like a lot of us are, when we do a 3rd step prayer, we're wondering, well, turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. What is God's will for your life? We'll start with what God's will isn't. God's will is not for your family to break up. God's will is not for you to spend your life in prison and incarcerated and all those different things. But some of us are walking around in a self-made prison in between our 2 ears tonight, and we're imprisoned by anger and resentment and fear and anxiety and depression. I know what that's like. I know what that's like often. There's 2 types of people here tonight. Actually, there's more than that, but if you actually are sober tonight, there's 2 types of people. If you're not sober tonight, we love you. Tell us about it. I had a friend of mine come up to me before the meeting started. He says, I smoked crack last night. I said, thank you for telling me. I love you. But some of you aren't telling us that. And it's like now, I found out last night, I kind of had to giggle to myself. I'm just grateful back in the day when I was looking at pornography, that I didn't have a smartphone. Because I'm grateful, man, that phone would have been nothing nice. And we don't talk about pornography. Now that you got a smartphone, that stuff's easy accessible. And I'm grateful I got freed of that a long time ago. But Doug was telling me about these new UAs we got, where you can give a UA and find out if somebody drank over the weekend. That kind of sucks if you drank over the weekend. Because you think you got away with it, because they're not, the breathalyzer will be, But no, now it's testing for something else. And I said, boy, God's really loving us now. And a couple people drank over the weekend. I wish you would have told us you drank over the weekend before we found out you drank over the weekend. We're just like you. We're not your enemies. We're not your enemies. We're here to help. So let us help. I know I just ruined some of your buzzes because you weren't aware of this new technology. But the bottom line is this, and even these new UAs with these synthetics are coming out now, and God is shutting the door so people like you and I can no longer buy stuff that's killing us. So we start with what our purpose isn't, and over the last 3-4 weeks, we've been talking about what purpose is, that you were created for a reason. And as I was studying, as I alluded to before, God said, flip the script. I don't know how many of you were here a couple years ago when I did the opposite of the 12 steps. And I really got a lot of amens, because that's a lot of how people were living. So now I'm going to go to the opposite of what I wanted to teach, and I don't know how it's going to go, and that's why I asked you to pray for me. But I'm here to tell you that drugs serve a purpose. Alcohol serves a purpose, but it doesn't serve the purpose that you think it does. You did it and I did it as a sense of relief, and it was the farthest thing from relief. On the other side of relief, relief is not spelled C-R-A-C-K. There was consequences, and there was pain, and there was broken families, and there was death, and there was incarceration, there was bankruptcy, there was moral failure, my body was dying from the inside out. So drugs and alcohol, pornography, and gambling serve a purpose. And I want to read you of the definition that is on your sheets that God told me to do. Something set up. Do you know that drugs and alcohol are a setup from the devil? You've been set up, and I've been set up, and we've been punked. We bought into the lie that this was going to do something positive for us. Because the first couple times we did it, we did actually experience a false sense of relief. The definition goes on to say, an object end to be obtained. Did you ever think you would die the first time you used? Some of you don't even think, see, so many of us are so used to coming back that it's not a problem to relapse. We've been addicted to coming back because these rooms welcome you back. And that's the way it is, and it should be. But you don't, all of us have another relapse in us. All of us. I mean, all of us can relapse. I mean, but do you have another recovery in you? Do you remember how hard it was to get here? So you got to understand that the purpose of addiction is a setup. And the thing that's going to be attained is jails, institutions, and death. How many people have been to jail? So we got that checked. How many people have flatlined? We got that checked. How many have been in institutions? The whole place should go up now. So that's the setup and the purpose of addiction. And that's the result of it. It says the reason for something is done. Why did you get high? What was the purpose of getting high? After a while, it wasn't fun because I thought everybody else and everyone in town had bad dope. It's just my tolerance was way up. So it goes on to say now, the reason why something is done or created. Drugs were created. They're evil. Alcohol, it's evil. And it's created so it can kill you. And it says the feeling of determined. I mean, think about when you were active in your addiction, how determined you were. You were broke, but you were determined to get that dope. You were broke, but you were determined to get to that liquor store. They said they were going to leave you if you drank again. We're out. We're packing our bags, and I'm taking the kids with me. And you were determined to drink anyway. So don't tell me you don't know how to be determined. It says an aim or a goal. So what was the aim or goal when you picked up for the first time? What was the purpose of doing it? The purpose is that we felt so uncomfortable in our own skin that we used a method of escape thinking that would make us free and liberated, but it really incarcerated us. So we've been set up. Don't you hate getting punked? Because some of us are so tough. We get punked by a weed. Majority of drugs come from a weed, alcohol. You know, I'm punked. I mean, if I had a little blade of grass, I'm like, you're punking me. A little blade of a plant. Punking me. But we're so tough. So it has a purpose. And within our addiction, we take our position. It says an act of placing. I strategically placed myself where the dope was. I strategically placed myself at Stand-Up Frank's in the day because they served the best drinks. I was strategic, and I placed myself in position in my addiction. Check out what the terminology says here. A placing and arranging. I arranged everything through lies so you wouldn't know what I was really doing. So I had taken my position in my addiction in order. Every day I knew exactly what I was going to do to get what I wanted to be done. It says a place where something is located. You couldn't find me. Where's Jeff? I don't know. See, even though I had taken my position in my addiction, I could never be located. My addiction put me on the streets. The position I took in my position put me on the streets. It put me in jail. It put me in treatment. It put me at 1800 Chicago. And it says, a point of view adopted and held to. The position I took about my addiction, the point of view that I had about it, well, it ain't that bad. How can you have that point of view when everything around you is crumbling? People are walking out of your lives, and then it says exposure. So I want to take it down, the definition of exposure when it comes to addiction. I'll never do that. Go to treatment the first time. I'll never be like that. Become exactly like it and worse. I didn't know I was capable of stealing. I didn't know I was capable of doing that. I didn't know I was capable of leaving my kids. I didn't know I was capable of leaving my family for cocaine. So things are beginning to get exposed, and the things that are being exposed, and I'm doing the things because I'm high, and I chose not to work a program, so I can't blame it on being high because I make a decision when I was sober not to work a program. So I made a decision to get high without even knowing I was making a decision to get high when I made a decision not to work a program. So some of you tonight have made a decision to get high, and you think you haven't. And if you're not working a program, you have made a decision to get high. So things begin to get exposed, and maybe I'm not that good of a father. Maybe I'm not that good of a husband. Maybe I'm not that good of a professional because everything else is falling apart, and things are being exposed in my addiction, especially the things I'm going to get to. Are you okay? Did you use last night? No, I'm good. I'm trying to hide it because I believe, just like a lot of you do tonight, if you want to conceal it because if it's revealed, you'll be met with disapproval. That's not what happened to my friend and I who just told me he smoked crack yesterday when I said, okay, thank you for being honest. We can work together now. But a lot of times we're trying to conceal things and we think if it's revealed, we're met with disapproval. But let me ask you a question. When were you using and you thought it was concealed? It always gets revealed. It always gets revealed. So certain things become exposed, but check this out. And then in our addiction, we develop a routine. We have an aim or a goal within our addiction. In our addiction, we begin to develop a routine. A routine definition is a sequence of actions regularly followed. You did and I did whatever that dope told me to do. Whatever that routine told me to do, some of us were hustlers. Some of us were thieves. We had a routine. We went to this store and that store. I had a routine on my dope pickups and my dope buys and my dope sells. It was a routine, and it was a rigid routine, and it was orderly, and I stuck to it. But I was set up, so I thought the routine would work, but it never ended up working. A fixed program. Habitual. Did you think that you would end up as an addict the first time you got set up to use? Did it say in your high school yearbook that my life goal is to be homeless and high? But it says now a routine. So we all know that we had a routine in our addiction, an established procedure. And now we're going to talk about power. So they tell us that this stuff is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It had a lot of power. It had so much power, it made us do things that we said we were never going to do. It developed habits. It made us walk away from things that we loved. It made us do things that we hated. And the power of drugs, it's something you don't want to mess with. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it says an ability to act, the definition of power. So it made me act a certain way. And the effect that it produced was jails, institutions, and death. Official authority, the addiction, the dope, the alcohol, the casino, it seemed like it had the ultimate authority in your life. It seems like we listened to that voice over any other voice that we had. And it goes on to say a capacity. That's talking about your tolerance. Remember when you could have a beer and feel a little lightheaded? Now you put down a jug and you get a headache. You develop a capacity in your addiction. What once worked doesn't work. So you begin to seek other things. It says, and a right, and it says a physical might, mental and moral, and all those things. My physical might went out the window. My mental strength went out the window, and my moral competency went out the window. A possession, I was possessed. Now, I wanted to say all that to say this, that you have proven that you can walk in purpose. You have proven that you can walk in a routine. You have proven that you can expose things. You have proven and bought things that were powerful. See, you're going to need all these same characteristics in your recovery, but you're just not going to have dope. So the power of amphetamines and cocaine and heroin and alcohol, it will do something to your body. So you're not going to be able to recover without a power, and that power is God. Just like, I don't think you would have done half the things you did if you weren't under the influence. And it goes on to say now the definition of purpose is something set up. So anybody who's under the sound of my voice has the same opportunity of anybody who's under the sound of my voice. You've been set up for success. The reason why something is done. I want to recover on purpose. I have to be intentional. I have to be honest intentionally. Something exists, a feeling of something. I am determined to get this right this time. I learned determination on the streets. The devil trained me so God could use me. It says an aim or a goal. My aim or a goal is to get free, because I know if I get free, I'm going to get my family back. Some of you, your goal is to get something back that you lost, and you don't even really care about getting free. You're smart enough to get back what you lost, but you're going to end up losing it again because you're not free. And what going back to the two type of people that are actually sober under, you're either conditionally sober or positionally sober. Positionally sober is you're here tonight and you're not in the bar. You're out of the position that you were in active use. Conditionally sober means you're actually free. You're actually free. I've been positionally sober before and not conditionally free. And it talks about taking a position. You got to take a position in this place. You have to learn how to expose yourself. That's steps 4 and 5. You have to develop a routine. You shouldn't have to make decisions. You should know where you're going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Don't leave room for error. Don't sit around Friday night wondering what you should do, because you're going to think of something really crazy to do. So you need somebody to make the decision for you. You need to develop a routine, and then you need to tap into the power of God. It says in 2 Kings here, when you got here, you were scorched. It says, their people drained of power. Man, I remember when I couldn't even walk up a set of stairs of 3. I remember when I couldn't even get a drink to my hand because my DTs. I remember when I couldn't shoot. I couldn't get the pipe to my mouth because I was so tweaked. Oh, and I dropped the pipe and I do this and I do that, and I'm looking out the window and I'm doing this, and I'm wondering about my kids, and I'm wondering if my PO is going to come, and I'm wondering how much money I'm going to get, and I'm wondering how I'm going to stay to my routine and what's going to happen tomorrow, and I wonder if they're going to find out, and if I'm going to get fired with my job, or am I going to have to go to prison, and if I'm going to get caught stealing. A lot of wondering. See, you got to understand, when you got here, you were scorched. You were drained of all power. I don't know about you, but there was a time in my life in my addiction that I couldn't even digest food. Don't ever forget that. So we get here and we're scorched. It says in 2 Corinthians 13, God has placed powerful people among you. Do you know who's in the room with you tonight? We're not just talking about put the plug in the jug and do the best you can. We're talking about there's people in this room that are leaders, entrepreneurs, family people, people of influence. So this is not a typical meeting. This is championship type setting. If you want what they have, you'll end up doing what they do. It says, I will give you proof that Christ speaks through me. God speaks through people. It says Christ is not weak when he deals with you. Like I said on Sunday, he'll use a chisel or a sledgehammer. It says in Job 27, God's powerful people will teach you about his power. I'm grateful that somebody taught a junkie like me about the power of God. And it wasn't my first time here. It wasn't my second time here. It wasn't my 10th time here. It wasn't my 20th time here. I'm grateful that somebody that had power, that had influence, that had results, that has a family, that has businesses, that has significance, that has abundance, would teach a junkie like me, and everything I had was in a hefty garbage bag. But I would sit there and size the guy up. Who does he think he is? Oh my God, I lost the one quarter I had. All I needed was 3 more to get one cigarette. Anyways, I'm grateful that people that had the power would teach me, because they've been exactly where I am and where I was. And if they could do it, that gave me an indication that I could do it. Ways to access his power. John 1:12. God's power comes with conditions. Can God even trust you with his power? Can God even trust? I mean, I think about God, and God says that we're created in his image. So I believe God has feelings too. And he looks at a guy like me, man, I got you out of that jam. How many times do I have to get you out of that jam and put you in a place that's safe? I mean, you really should be in jail or dead, but here you are in actually a nice house. And geez, I mean, it's got a TV in it. Did you forget you used to live in a closet and peep out the windows? But in order to receive the power, see, some of us are just used to taking. We don't know how to receive. We're takers. And somebody taught me years ago, a resident of the program, we take and take and take until we got nothing left. So ask yourself, what was on the other side of your take? If you would have accumulated everything you took, you would have had abundance when you got here. But if you learn how to receive from God, some of us can't do that yet, and that's okay. Oh, good job. You can't even say thank you because you're so not used to being good. We were good at being bad. So when someone recognizes that we're actually putting in an honest effort, we can't even receive the compliment. Or sometimes somebody may not know what shenanigans we're up to. So they just love us and you don't want to receive it because you know you're playing games. Those are kind of the two things that I see. It says in Matthew 22:29, God's power comes through his word. I want to get back to the conditions quick on his power. You got to adhere to, trust in, and rely on him. Let's go through the steps quick. You came to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. That's when you begin adhering to him. You made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. That's when you began to trust him in ways that you have trust issues. You made a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. You admitted to God, to yourself, and another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. You became entirely ready to have God, not you, remove your defects of character. You humbly asked God to remove your shortcomings. You became willing to make a list of everybody that you're wrong, and then you made direct amends whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them and others. And then, not when you're wrong, not if you're wrong, when you're wrong, you promptly admit it. And then you sought through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry it out. And then and only then that you can only have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And you tried to carry the message and to practice these principles in all of your affairs. See, that's what happens when you adhere to, trust in, and rely on. You have to do that to get his power, and you have to do that to work the steps. You have to. So find somebody that can teach you that, who's got the power. They're not all arrogant and prideful. They're humble that God would even entrust them to do this one day at a time. I just met with a pastor from the Jesus People Church back in the day. He was just humble. He couldn't believe what's going on here. You're doing everything we did in the 70s. And it's like, it ain't me doing it, it's God doing it. It says in 1 Corinthians 6:14, God's power comes through his Spirit. So just like, see, some of us used to drink spirits. And those spirits that you drank made you see some things. So you're going to need his Spirit to do this. Just like you needed those spirits to do that. You're going to need his Spirit. The power of God raised you, Lord, from the dead. He will also raise you. God's power can raise you out of stuff. Raise you out of depression, anxiety, fear. God's power can do mighty things. It says in 2 Peter, God's power comes from getting to know him. See, I was determined to get to know the number one man in town that was selling the most purified cocaine. I was very determined to meet that man. So I got to be very determined to meet God. I got to be determined, and I got to get to know him. Because if you look around the room tonight, there's over 100 of us that are actually walking in humility in this power. People that are chronic drug addicts and alcoholics and gamblers and even porn freaks that are living free. And it says right now, so if they can do it, you can do it. It says in 2 Peter 1:3, God's power comes from getting to know him. Check this out. By his divine power, God has given us everything we need for a godly life. Too many of us tonight are in a hurry to get stuff back. And we got to understand that it's God's power that gives us everything we need to live a godly life. And what you're trying to get back, if it was that powerful and that important, why did you put it in the pawn shop? That you have to have it tonight, and all else fails, you don't really care about freedom, you just got to get your family, all these things. Well, you left them. And if you return to them too early, you will leave them again. Some of us are heck bent on getting our license back, and we fail to recognize it's a setup, and it's that license that's going to drive us to the dope house. If you ever get your license back, your car should be full of people taking them to a meeting. Because chances are, before you got your license back, somebody gave you a ride. See, I understand, and I'm still grateful that I got one roof over my head, even though we got a lot of roofs. I understand that God, by coming to know him, he's given me everything I need. So the benefits of God's power, 2 Thessalonians, God's power allows you to pursue your faith.
It says, so keep on praying. We keep on praying. My mom's here tonight. I'm here because of her prayers, not because of my diligence. Somebody prayed you here. Somebody has prayed for you to be here. And since you're here, it says, why don't you live a life worthy of his call? I said it earlier, if someone saves your life, you might as well live it. May he give you the power to accomplish the good things. Remember when amphetamines gave you the power to accomplish bad things? Remember that alcohol gave you the power to accomplish bad things? So God's power gives us the power to accomplish good things that your faith has prompted you to do. What would your life look like today if you did everything good that you once were prompted to do? I'm going to be a good parent. I'm going to be a good man. I'm going to be a good businessman. I'm going to be a good friend. I'm going to be a good What if I did that for 48 years? Where would I be? I don't know. But I'm grateful I'm here now. And once you get here and you actually work this, the next thing out of the devil's mouth will be, what took you so long? So you got to know his game, and I'm going to talk to you about him next week. And it says now in Ephesians 3, God's power allows you to accomplish things. Now to him who is able. First you got to believe that God is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to his power. 10 years ago, we had 12 beds. I was working my job during the day, and I was extremely overwhelmed. I was stressed out of my mind because I wasn't operating in the power of God. Today we have a church where over 600 people come. We have houses where there's 100 beds. We have a room full of hundreds of people tonight. With God's power, you can do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. Now, I didn't ask to go out last night to deal with the drug addict. I didn't ask not to sleep some nights because somebody's going to die if we don't do a 12-step call. I didn't ask to talk to a 6-year-old that doesn't know his dad because he's addicted. I didn't ask for that. But I also did things in my addiction that I did not ask for. So this power is going to make you do things that you didn't ask to do. But the difference between being asked to do this and asked to do the other things, this one won't kill you. This one will elevate you. This one will promote you. This one will give you fulfillment and all those things. So we can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. And it is so important that we grasp this, as it says here in 2 Samuel, and he became more and more powerful. With God, there's no limit to, and the key is, can God trust you with that power? Can God even trust you with money? Can God trust you with a car? Can God trust you with a job? Can God trust you with your kids? Can God trust you with a wife or a husband? Or where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. So what's the purpose for your car? What's the purpose for your job besides to pay the bills and pay rent? If you don't know why you have it and the purpose why God trusted you with it, you'll abuse it. And whatever you abuse, you will eventually lose. And I thought I came here because I was tired of losing stuff. If you do not know the purpose of why God is restoring your life, he's restoring your life on purpose, not just for you, not just for your family. Yes, you were a good father once you got sober, but it's much bigger than that. And none of us are great fathers. We all, but here it says in Philippians 2, would you use his power to please him? If God took your anxiety away, if he took your depression away, if you were to get up every morning with a great attitude, what would you do with that great attitude? That's what you have to ask yourself here tonight. What I did with it is what I'm still doing with it. And if you put it to use, you won't lose it. See, here's what it says. For God is working in you, giving you the desire. See, the power to do what pleases him. God removed my desire to smoke cocaine. And he replaced the desire to smoke cocaine with the desire to please him. But my desire was not enough. I had to know what his power was. And if God entrusts you with his power, he gives you his power on purpose, and the purpose of his power is to please him. And what pleases him is when you help other people. And if you help other people, you're automatically going to help yourself if you have any level of common sense. Because you cannot keep what you have unless you give it away. Can God trust you with increase? Can He trust you with a new job? Can He trust you with a restored relationship? Can He trust you with a church? Can He trust you with a friend? It says now in Romans 4, it says, people don't believe in His power. There's enough evidence in this room being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what He had promised. People don't work the steps because they don't believe the promises after the 9th step. If you believe that those were for you, you would probably work them. But there's a lot of this is unconscious, and we don't really understand why we don't do that. I don't think somebody's in this room and they're purposely not working the steps. So you have to have a level of common sense. I'm not purposely not working the steps. I'm just not working the steps. So that should tell you that there's also another power coming against you that doesn't want you to work the steps. And I'm going to talk about that next week. Again, if this was as easy as putting the bottle in the garbage can and walking away and saying, I'm never going to drink again, our success rates of sobriety would be extremely high. But as soon as you get to know about that power, there's another power that's going to come visit you. But up until now, that other power doesn't care about you because that other power knows you're going to wreck you anyway. I mean, it's the truth. The devil don't need any help. He doesn't need your help for you to go use. That's already inside of you. So it says this as we close in Exodus 9:16. God saved you so people can see the power in you. But I have raised you for this very purpose. God raised you and I out of our addiction before we even knew about His power. How many times did you try to quit and you couldn't? God raised us out of our addiction before we really knew about His power. And this is the things that He said after He does that I might show you my power. God is not going to really show you His power until He can trust you with that power. And the reason why He gave you the power is that His name may be proclaimed throughout the earth. He will continue, and I say this with all humility, but I say it with all confidence, because I could not run flourishing businesses, financials, sober houses, churches, people, hundreds and thousands of people without His power. And if I ever stop proclaiming His name, the power will be taken. So do you want it or not? God bless you.